Welcome. I am Alison Duana, astrologer and priestess, and one of my favourite books, a book that sparked off my initiation many years ago, is Women Who Run with Wolves. And I felt very drawn back to the book. And the issue I've been dealing with is that of toxicity, concern about water in the world, the Dakota pipeline, fracking in Britain. But there's a problem that's much closer to home for me, and it's very painful. And the problem in a nutshell is that from a very young age, maybe about 11, I've always been a very rebellious person, and I kind of got caught up in addictions very young in my life. Alcohol and tobacco have been my main poisons, but I also think of them now as sacred plants that I have got into a difficult relationship with. And so I have this kind of inner poisoner, and this inner poisoner I feel is connected to the rage that I feel about what has happened to children in the world. I was sexually abused myself as a child, and I know of so many others who have as well. It seems absolutely prolific problem. And and then the issues to do with women, the way that women are treated, and that, we have thought, maybe some of us, that we were getting somewhere with equality, but I'm speaking at the time where Trump has been elected, and there's a real undercurrent of misogyny in the world, and so as women we really need to step into our power. I do believe we can make a big difference collectively. So I offer the story, and in the book it's under the chapter 12, Marking Territory, the Boundaries of Rage and Forgiveness. So I'm just going to read the little introduction to the story as well, because she just sums it up perfectly. She's such a brilliant writer. The Crescent Moon Bear. Under the tutelage of wild woman, we reclaim the ancient, the intuitive, and the passionate. When our lives reflect hers, we act cohesively. We carry through, or learn to if we don't already know how. We take the steps to make our ideas manifest in the world. We regain focus when we lose it, attend to personal rhythms, draw closer to friends and mates who are in accord with wildish and integral rhythms. We choose relationships that nurture our creative and instinctive lives. We reach out to nurture others. And we are willing to teach receptive mates about wildish rhythms, if need be. But there is another aspect to mastery, and that is dealing with what can only be called woman's rage. The release of that rage is required. Once women remember the origins of their rage, they feel they may never stop grinding their teeth. Ironically, we also feel anxious to disperse our anger, for it feels distressing and noxious. We wish to hurry up and do away with it, but repressing it will not work. It's like trying to put fire into a burlap bag. Neither is it good to scold ourselves or someone else with it. So there we are, holding this powerful emotion that we feel came upon us unbidden. It is a little like toxic water. There it is. No one wants it, but there are few disposal areas for it. One has to travel far in order to find a burial ground. Here is a version of a Japanese story called Tsukina Waguma, the Crescent Moon Bear, which can help us see our way through this matter. The story was given to me, Clarissa Pinkola Estes, by Sergeant Segara, a World War II veteran and patient at Hines Veterans Assistance Hospital in Illinois many years ago. And here is the story. There once was a woman who lived in a fragrant pine forest. Her husband was away fighting a war for many years. When finally he was released from duty, he trudged home in a most foul mood. He refused to enter the house, for he had become used to sleeping on stones. He kept to himself and stayed in the forest day and night. His young wife was so excited when she learned her husband was coming home at last. She cooked and shopped and cooked and made dishes and bowls of tasty white soybean curd and 3 kinds of fish and 3 kinds of seaweed and rice sprinkled with red pepper and nice cold prawns, big and orange. Smiling shyly, she carried the food to the woods and knelt beside her war-weary husband and offered to him the beautiful food she had prepared. But he sprang to his feet and kicked the trays over, so that the bean curd spilled, the fish jumped into the air, the seaweed and rice spilled into the dirt, and the big orange prawns rolled down the path. "Leave me alone," he roared, and turned his back on her. He became so enraged she was frightened of him. And finally, in desperation, she found her way to the cave of the healer who lived outside the village. "My husband has been badly injured in the war," the wife said. "He rages continually and eats nothing. He wishes to stay outside and will not live with me as before. Can you give me a potion that will make him loving and gentle once again?" The healer assured her, "This I can do for you, but I need a special ingredient. Unfortunately, I am all out of hair from the Crescent Moon Bear. So you must climb the mountain, find the black bear, and bring me back a single hair from the crescent moon at its throat. Then I can give you what you need, and life will be good again." Some women would have felt daunted by this task. Some women would have thought the entire effort impossible, but not she, for she was a woman who loved. "Oh, I am so grateful," she said. "It is so good to know that something can be done." So she readied for her journey, and the next morning she went out to the mountain, and she sang out, "Arigato, Zaisho," which is a way of greeting the mountain and saying, "Thank you for letting me climb upon your body." She climbed into the foothills where there were boulders like big loaves of bread. She ascended up to a plateau covered with forest. The trees had long, draping boughs and leaves that looked like stars. "Arigato zaisho," she sang out. This was a way of thanking the trees for lifting their hair so she could pass underneath. And so she found her way through the forest and began to climb again. It was harder now. The mountain had thorny flowers that seized the hem of her kimono, and rocks that scraped her tiny hands. Strange dark birds flew out at her in the dusk and frightened her. She knew they were Muntan, Butoka, spirits of the dead who have no relatives, and she sang out prayers for them. "I will be your relative. I will lay you to rest." Still she climbed, for she was a woman who loved. She climbed till she saw snow on the mountain peak. Soon her feet were wet and cold, and still she climbed higher, for she was a woman who loved. A storm began, and the snow blew straight into her eyes and deep into her ears. Blinded, still she climbed higher, and when the snow stopped, the woman sang out, "Arigato zaisho," to thank the winds for ceasing to blind her. She took shelter in a shallow cave and could barely pull all of herself into it. Though she had a full pack of food, she did not eat, but covered herself in leaves and slept. In the morning the air was calm, and little green plants even showed through the snow here and there. "Ah," she thought, "now for the crescent moon bear." She searched all day, and near twilight found thick cords of scat and needed look no farther, for a gigantic black bear lumbered across the snowfalls, leaving deep pad and claw marks. The crescent moon bear roared fiercely and entered its den. She reached into her bundle and placed the food she had brought in a bowl. She set the bowl outside the den and ran back to her shelter to hide. The bear smelled the food and came lurching from its den, roaring so loud it shook loose little stones. The bear circled round the food from a distance. The great bear reared up and disappeared into its den. The next evening the woman did the same, set in the food in the bowl, but this time, instead of returning to her shelter, she retreated only halfway. The bear smelled the food, heaved itself out of its den, roared to shake the stars from the skies, circled, tested the air very cautiously, but finally gobbled up the food and crawled back into its den. This continued for many nights, until one dark, blue night the woman felt brave enough to wait even closer to the bear's den. She put the food in the bowl outside the den and stood right by the opening. When the bear smelled the food and lumbered out, it saw not only the usual food, but a pair of small human feet as well. The bear turned its head sideways and roared so loud it made the bones in the woman's body hum. The woman trembled but stood her ground. The bear hauled itself onto its back legs, smacked its jaws, and roared so loud that the woman could see right up into the red and brown roof of its mouth. But she did not run away. The bear roared even more and put out its arms as though to seize her, its 10 claws hanging like 10 long knives over her scalp. The woman shook like a leaf in high wind, but stayed right where she was. "Oh, please, dear bear," she pleaded. "Please, dear bear, I've come all this way because I need a cure for my husband." The bear brought front paws to earth in a spray of snow and peered into the woman's frightened face. For a moment, the woman felt she could see entire mountain ranges, valleys, rivers, and villages reflected in the bear's old, old eyes. A deep peace settled over her, and her trembling ceased. "Please, dear bear, I have been feeding you all these past nights. Could I please have one of the hairs from the crescent moon on your throat?" The bear paused and thought. This little woman would be easy food. Yet suddenly he was filled with pity for her. "It is true," said the crescent moon bear, not moving its claws away from her head. "You've been good to me. You may have one of my hairs, but take it quickly, then leave here and go back to your own." The bear raised its great snout so that the white crescent on its throat showed, and the woman could see the strong pulse of the bear's heart there. The woman put one hand on the bear's neck and with her other took hold of a single glossy white hair. Quickly she pulled it. The bear reared back and cried out as though wounded. And this pain then settled into annoyed huffs. "Oh, thank you, crescent moon bear. Thank you so much." The woman bowed and bowed. But the bear growled and lumbered forward a step. It roared at the woman in words she could not understand, and yet words she had somehow known all her life. She turned and fled down the mountain as fast as she could. She ran under the trees with leaves shaped like stars. And all the way through she cried, "Arigato zaisho," to thank the trees for lifting their boughs so she could pass. She stumbled over the boulders that looked like big loaves of bread, crying, "Arigato zaisho," to thank the mountains for letting her climb upon its body. Though her clothes were ragged, her hair askew, her face soiled, she ran down the stone stairs that led to the village, down the dirt road and right through the town to its other side, and into the hovel where the healer sat tending the fire. "Look, look, I have it. I found it. I claimed it, a hair of the crescent moon bear," cried the young woman. "Ah, good," said the healer with a smile. She peered closely at the woman and took the pure white hair and held it out toward the light. She weighed the long hair in one old hand, measured it with one finger, and exclaimed, "Yes, this is an authentic hair from the crescent moon bear." Then suddenly she turned and threw the hair deep into the fire, where it popped and crackled and was consumed in a bright orange flame. "No!" cried the woman. "What have you done?" "Be calm. All is good. All is well," said the healer. "Remember each step you took to climb the mountain. Remember each step you took to capture the trust of the crescent moon bear. Remember what you saw, what you heard, and what you felt. Yes, said the woman, I remember very well. The old healer smiled at her gently and said, Please now, my daughter, go home with your new understandings and proceed in the same ways with your husband. In these mythical stories, each of the characters in the story is a part of ourselves. The woman who climbed the mountain, the husband full of rage because of the cruelty, the pain of war, the healer with her wise words to send the woman on this quest, and the bear itself. So take the story into your heart and let it work its magic upon you. Blessings to you, sisters and brothers out there who have taken the time to listen to this, to be with your feelings. And let us nurture the part of ourselves which is raging, so that we may heal this world of the injuries, the cruelties that lie in all our ancestral paths of war. Namaste. Go in peace.